I still remember the smell, metal and fear, and my own sweat as I lay curled in that dog crate, listening to him explain to our children that mommy needs quiet time. 3 years of marriage had brought me here from wedding vows to being locked in a cage meant for a German shepherd, all because I'd mentioned visiting my sister 2 states away. If you've ever felt trapped, whether by a person or a situation that slowly closed in around you, then you know that moment when you realize no, one is coming to save you. But what you might not know yet is how you find the strength to save yourself. Tell me in the comments where you're listening from. And if you're a mother, stay strong. Leave a like. Subscribe. What would you do if the person who promised to love you forever made sure forever meant you'd never see daylight again? People often ask me how someone ends up married to a monster. The truth is, monsters don't introduce themselves as monsters. They come disguised as everything you've ever wanted. I met David at my cousin's wedding. I was 26, working as a dental receptionist, and tired of dating men who couldn't commit. He was 32, established in construction, and looked at me like I was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. "You deserve to be cherished," he told me on our third date, reaching across the table to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. "The men in this town don't know how to treat a woman like you." I believed him, especially when he surprised me with flowers at work, when he remembered every detail I shared about my childhood, when he fixed my leaking roof without being asked. My best friend, Leanne, was the first to notice. "He texted you 7 times during lunch," she said. "That's not normal, Sarah." "He worries," I defended. "It's sweet. Sweet or controlling. There's a fine line." I dismissed her concern as jealousy. The same way I ignored how David always had an opinion about my clothes, how he'd frown if I ordered a drink at dinner, how he'd call my boss if I worked late, just to make sure I was really there. 6 months after we met, David proposed with a ring that felt too heavy on my finger. "I can't imagine my life without you," he said, eyes intense. "Say yes or I don't know what I'll do." I said yes because I loved him, but also because the alternative felt vaguely threatening. At our wedding, my father pulled me aside during the reception. "You sure about this, sweetheart? There's something in his eyes I don't trust." "Daddy, you've never trusted any man I've dated, because none of them were good enough for you. But this one. He hesitated. "Just know you can always come home." I kissed his cheek and laughed it off. But later, I caught David watching us, his jaw tight with barely contained anger. "What were you and your father talking about?" he demanded. "In the limo, nothing important." "Don't lie to me, Sarah, not on our wedding day." It was the first time I felt that chill, the one that would eventually become as familiar as my own heartbeat. I should have seen it then. The jealousy wasn't just of other men, but of anyone who had a piece of me, anyone I loved besides him. But I was already wearing his ring, already bound by vows still warm on my lips. And I'd been raised to believe marriage was forever. So instead of running, I made the first of many accommodations. "He was just being overprotective," I said, squeezing David's hand. "You know how fathers are." David smiled, and I felt the tension break. "I'll protect you now," he promised. "Better than anyone ever has." I wish I'd known that what he really meant was that he'd never let me go. We moved 3 weeks after the honeymoon. David surprised me with keys to a farmhouse 30 miles outside town, surrounded by acres of woods and cornfields. "It's perfect," he said, spinning me around the empty living room. "Private, quiet, just us." I tried to match his enthusiasm, but the distance from everything familiar sent a flutter of anxiety through my chest. It's single quotes S. remote. "That's the point, baby. No nosy neighbors, no traffic. I can build you a garden. We can raise our children surrounded by nature." He kissed my forehead. "Don't you trust me?" I did trust him. And the house was beautiful. 3 bedrooms, hardwood floors, a wraparound porch. But as the moving truck pulled away, taking with it my last connection to civilization, I couldn't. shake the feeling of being swallowed by all that open space. The isolation happened so gradually I barely noticed. First, my car needed repairs that stretched from days into weeks. Then the internet connection was unreliable because of our location. My cell phone mysteriously lost reception except in specific corners of the house. Use the landline, David suggested. It's more reliable anyway. But the landline was in the kitchen where David could hear every word. Calls to Leanne or my sister grew awkward and short. They stopped calling as often. I told myself it was natural people get busy. Friendships change after marriage. Then came the incident with my mother. She'd driven out unannounced, concerned after 3 unanswered calls. Surprise! She called, stepping onto our porch with a casserole. David was furious. I could see it in the tightness around his mouth, though he smiled and welcomed her inside. That night, after she left, he threw the untouched casserole against the wall. Don't you understand? This is our sanctuary. Our private space. Your mother doesn't respect our boundaries. She was worried she was interfering. His voice softened as he helped me clean up the shattered glass. I'm sorry, baby. I just want us to have our own life, without everyone's opinions and judgments. Next day, he installed a security gate at the end of our long driveway. For protection, he said. From what I wondered but didn't ask. 2 months later, I discovered I was pregnant. David was ecstatic, spinning me around the kitchen, making plans for the nursery. That night, he made love to me with a tenderness. That reminded me of our early days. Now you're truly mine, he whispered as I drifted to sleep. Both of you. I didn't realize that pregnancy would become another chain. Doctor's appointments were always scheduled when David could attend. He answered the doctor's questions before I could, insisted on restricted activity for my safety. By my 3rd trimester, the only people I spoke to regularly were David and the cashier at the grocery store. And even those trips became rarer, as David insisted on doing the shopping himself. You need to rest, he'd say, kissing my swollen belly. Let me take care of everything. And so I did. My water broke 3 weeks early. I woke to wet sheets and panic, shaking David's shoulder. It's time. I gasped through the first contraction. He was immediately alert, helping me to the car with practiced efficiency. But instead of excitement, his face showed something closer to determination. Like a man preparing for battle. At the hospital, he never left my side. When the nurse suggested he step out during my exam, David refused. I'm staying with my wife. Sir, sometimes we need to ask private questions. Anything you need to ask her, you can ask in front of me. His tone left no room for argument. The nurse glanced at me, a question in her eyes. I should have spoken up. Should have asked for those few minutes alone. Instead, I smiled weakly and said, It's fine. It wasn't fine. Nothing about my 22 hours of labor was fine. David rejected the epidural I begged for, insisting on a natural experience. He questioned every decision the doctors made, demanded to see credentials, refused certain nurses. You're making this harder, I whispered during a brief moment when we were alone. I'm protecting you, he answered. They push unnecessary interventions. Trust me. When Emma finally arrived, red-faced and screaming, the relief was overwhelming. She was perfect 6 pounds of wrinkled determination. The first time I held her, I felt a fierce, protective love that terrified me with its intensity. She's beautiful, David said, tears in his eyes. In that moment, I remembered why I'd fallen in love with him. How could someone so moved by our daughter's birth be anything but good? But then he added, She never know what it's like to feel unsafe. I'll make sure of it. The possessiveness in his voice sent a chill through my exhaustion. Hospital policy allowed for a 2-night stay after delivery. On the second morning, a social worker stopped by while David was getting coffee. How are things at home? She asked, clipboard in hand. Any concerns about returning? My heart raced. Was this my chance? Could I tell her how isolated I felt? How controlling David had become? Before I could answer, he returned, coffee cups in hand. Everything okay here? His tone was pleasant, but his eyes were sharp. Just routine questions, the social worker said, checking if there's any support needed at home. We've got everything covered, David assured her. My mother's staying with us for the first week. It was the first I'd heard of this arrangement. His mother lived in Arizona and had visited exactly once during our marriage. After the social worker left, I asked, "Is your mom really coming?" "Of course not, but they need to hear we have support." He stroked my hair. "We don't need anyone else, Sarah. Just us three." We left the hospital that afternoon. No visitors came to welcome Emma home. David had forgotten to notify my family about the birth until after we were discharged, claiming the excitement had overwhelmed him. The farmhouse felt different with a newborn, both more alive and more isolated. I spent hours in the nursery, nursing Emma, singing softly, treasuring these moments when I didn't feel completely alone. David installed baby monitors in every room, so we can hear her wherever we are, he explained, but I soon realized the monitors worked both ways. He could hear everything I said to Emma when he wasn't there. The private lullabies, the whispered promises, the occasional tears of frustration, all monitored. One night, after a particularly difficult day of colic and crying, I whispered to Emma, "Sometimes Mommy wishes we could go visit Grandma for a while." 10 minutes later, David appeared in the doorway. "Baby's finally asleep?" His voice was casual, but his eyes were cold. "Just nodded off," I answered. "Good, because we need to talk about your unhappiness here." He crossed his arms. "And why you'd even think about taking my daughter anywhere without me." Emma was 18 months old when I discovered I was pregnant again. David had been monitoring my cycle on a calendar in our bedroom, noting when we should try with the precision of a military campaign. The second blue line on the test brought conflicting emotions. Joy at the new life growing inside me. Terror at being further bound to this house, this man. "Another blessing," David said, kissing my still flat stomach. That night, he brought home champagne for himself and sparkling cider for me. To our growing family. I smiled and sipped my cider, remembering how we used to be. There were still these moments, glimpses of the charming man I'd married. Moments that made me doubt my own perception of our reality. Was it really so bad? Other women had demanding husbands. Other mothers felt isolated with young children. Maybe this was normal. Then came the night Emma witnessed her first correction. As David called his punishments, I'd been on the phone with my sister when Emma had a diaper blowout. The conversation ran long as I cleaned up the mess. By the time David came home, dinner wasn't ready. "I told you I had an important client today," he said, voice dangerously quiet. "I told you I needed a proper meal waiting." "I'm sorry, Emma had an accident and excuses?" He grabbed my wrist, squeezing until I gasped. "You were on the phone, weren't you?" "With who?" "Just Lisa. She called to check." The slap came so fast. I didn't see it coming. My head snapped sideways, ears ringing. Then came Emma's wail from her high chair. She'd seen everything. David immediately released me, his face transforming as he turned to our daughter. "Oh, Princess, it's okay. Mommy and Daddy were just having a disagreement." He lifted her from the chair, bouncing her gently. "Sometimes Mommy makes bad choices, and Daddy has to help her remember the rules, but we still love Mommy, don't we?" That night, after both Emma and David were asleep, I crept to the bathroom and examined the red mark on my cheek. It would fade by morning. The bruise on my wrist would take longer. I considered calling Lisa back, telling her everything, but the landline was in the kitchen, too close to our bedroom. And what would I say that my husband hit me once? That he monitored my calls? It sounded paranoid, exaggerated. Besides, where would I go with a toddler and a baby on the way? I had no job, no money of my own, no card out. Jackson was born 7 months later. Another home birth. David had insisted after what he called the hospital interference with Emma. The midwife seemed concerned about my quietness, my downcast eyes, but said nothing. As the children grew, David crafted a narrative about me. To Emma, not yet 4, and Jackson, still crawling, he would say things like, "Mommy gets confused sometimes. Mommy needs Daddy to keep her safe. Mommy would be lost without us." And the most insidious, "Remember to tell Daddy if Mommy does anything strange." My children became his unwitting spies. Emma would innocently report my activities if I cried in the shower, if I looked too long out the window, if I tried to use David's computer. "Daddy, Mommy was writing something, but she closed it when I came in." "Daddy, Mommy was talking to the mailman." Each report earned her praise from her father and another restriction from me. By the time Emma was 4 and Jackson 2, the rules were innumerable. Don't use the phone without permission. Don't go beyond the fence line. Don't speak to delivery people. Don't wear certain clothes. Don't. The children adjusted to our strange life, knowing nothing different. But sometimes I'd catch Emma watching me with a puzzled expression, as if trying to reconcile her father's stories with the mother she observed. In those moments, I'd see a flicker of doubt in her eyes. It was that doubt that kept me going. Someday, I thought, she'd be old enough to understand. Someday, she'd help me save us all. The delivery man was named Roger, 50s, salt and pepper beard, kind eyes. He brought packages twice a month, supplies David ordered online since I wasn't reliable with shopping. "Beautiful day, Roger," would say, handing me the boxes while David was at work. Yes, I'd reply nothing more. But over months, our exchanges grew longer. A comment about the weather became a remark about his grandchildren, became a quiet question when he noticed my fading bruise. "Everything okay here, ma'am?" I hesitated too long before saying yes. His eyes showed he understood. The next delivery, he slipped me a note with his phone number. "If you need anything," he whispered, "anything at all." I hid the paper inside Emma's teddy bear, heart pounding. For weeks, I couldn't bring myself to use it. What would I say? How would I leave? Where would I go? Then came the night David found Lisa's birthday card to me. I'd hidden it in my underwear drawer, simple card with a $20 bill tucked inside. "Treat yourself," my sister had written. Planning to go shopping without my knowledge? David's voice was eerily calm as he held up the money. "It's just a gift from Lisa." A secret gift? Hidden from me? He tore the bill in half. "Secrets mean you're planning something, Sarah. I'm not. Don't lie to me." Each word punctuated with a step toward me until my back hit the wall. "Are you thinking of leaving? Taking my children?" "No, David, please." His hand closed around my throat. Not enough pressure to cut off air, just enough to remind me he could. "If you ever try to leave me, I will find you. And the children will stay with me. Do you understand?" That night, I waited until 3 a.m. David was asleep. The children, too. Moving silently, I packed one small bag diapers, a change of clothes for each child, my ID hidden in David's desk. The $20 taped back together. I woke Emma first, finger to my lips. "We're going on an adventure," I whispered. "You need to be very quiet." Her eyes were wide, but she nodded. I lifted Jackson from his crib, praying he wouldn't cry. Made it to the kitchen. The landline was there, Roger's number clutched in my hand. I'd call him, wait by the road. It was a desperate plan, but the only one I had. I didn't hear David until he was right behind me. "Going somewhere." I froze, Jackson heavy in my arms, Emma clutching my leg. "Put the phone down." His voice was deadly quiet. "David, please." "Emma, take your brother to your room." "Daddy, Mommy said we're going on an adventure." Emma's voice trembled. "There's no adventure, Princess." Mommy's confused again. "Go to your room now." Emma looked between us, torn between obedience to her father and loyalty to me. "But now, Emma." She ran, sobbing. I tried to keep Jackson with me, but David ripped him from my arms, carried him to his crib, then returned. His face was transformed by rage. "You were going to take my children." "David, I was just..." The first blow knocked me against the counter. The second sent me to the floor. I tasted blood, heard the children crying, and then nothing as darkness closed in. I woke in the dark, disoriented. Small space. Cold metal beneath. The dog crate purchased months ago for a pet we never got. My head throbbed. My lip was split. David sat in a kitchen chair beside the crate, watching me. You need to understand something, Sarah. You will never leave this house unless I allow it. You will never take my children. You belong to me. He reached through the bars, almost tenderly stroking my hair. I've called work. Told them my wife is having a mental health crisis. I'll be home all week to take care of you. The children will learn what happens to mothers who try to abandon their families. He stood up. When you're ready to apologize, truly apologize, we'll discuss your release. He left me there in the dark in the crate meant for a dog we never had. 3 days I spent in that crate, allowed out only to use the bathroom, with David standing guard. He fed me like a pet, water in a bowl, food on a plate pushed through the bars. The children watched, confused and frightened. Mommy's sick, David explained. This is how we keep her safe until she's better. When will she be better? Emma asked, her small fingers reaching through the bars to touch mine. When she remembers how to be a good mommy and wife. On the 3rd day, I broke. Hunger, humiliation, and the devastation in my children's eyes wore me down. I apologized, promised never to try leaving again, begged him to let me be a mother to our children. David unlocked the crate, helped me stand on cramped legs. I forgive you, he said, kissing my forehead like a benediction. We all make mistakes. That night, he made love to me. I endured it, understanding this was part of my penance. Afterward, he held me too tightly and whispered, "Don't make me do that again." Life developed a new rhythm after that. The crate remained in the corner of our bedroom, a constant reminder of what awaited me if I defied him. But as long as I followed the rules, I was granted the illusion of freedom within our home. The rules multiplied. Wake at 6 a.m. to prepare David's breakfast. Keep the children quiet during his rest times. Wear the clothes he selected. Ask permission to go into the yard. Report any visitors or phone calls immediately. David installed cameras throughout the house for security. He claimed I knew better. They were another layer of surveillance, another way to monitor my every move. I learned to live under constant observation, to smile when I wanted to scream, to keep my voice level and my eyes downcast, to be the perfect wife he demanded. The days blurred together in a haze of domestic tasks and careful compliance. I measured time by the children's growth. Emma losing her baby teeth, Jackson learning to write his name. I channeled all my love and energy into them, knowing they were the only meaningful thing left in my life. But in stolen moments, when David was at work and the children were napping, I began to plan. Not an escape, I'd learned that lesson, but a way to document what was happening. A record in case I didn't survive this marriage. I started a journal, written in tiny script on paper torn from Emma's coloring books, hidden inside a rip-in, my mattress. Each entry was dated, each incident recorded in clinical detail. The time he broke my finger for talking back. The night he locked Emma in the crate for taking Mommy's side. The morning he held Jackson's hand over a hot stove for touching David's tools. If anyone ever found it, they would know. My children would know. This wasn't love. This wasn't discipline. This was torture. Meanwhile, I created a different persona for public consumption. On the rare occasions when David allowed me to accompany him to town, I was perfectly groomed, softly spoken, appropriately grateful for my protective husband. "You're so lucky," the cashier at the hardware store once told me. "He talks about you and the kids all the time." Such a family man. I smiled and nodded, wondering what she would think if she saw the bruises hidden beneath my long sleeves, or knew that my children were instructed to report my every move while he was gone. Yes, I agreed. Very lucky. At home, I taught the children in whispers. Not just reading in numbers, but subtle lessons about right and wrong, about bodily autonomy, about secrets that keep you safe versus secrets that hurt you. If someone hurts you, I told them during bath time, when the running water would mask my words from the cameras, it's okay to tell, even if that person says not to. "Even Daddy?" Emma asked, eyes wide. I hesitated, knowing the danger in my answer. Even Daddy, I finally whispered. Especially Daddy. That night, I lay awake beside David, listening to his steady breathing, wondering how much longer I could survive. How much longer my children could survive. Something would have to change. I just didn't know what or how, or when our chance would come. November brought David's family for Thanksgiving, his mother, Eleanor, and younger brother, Mark. I spent days cleaning, cooking, preparing the perfect holiday to avoid David's displeasure. Eleanor arrived first, air kissing my cheek before focusing entirely on her grandchildren. She'd visited twice in 5 years, both times maintaining the fiction that our family was normal. "Sarah, you look thin," she commented, eyes narrowing. "Are you taking care of yourself?" Before I could answer, David's arms circled my waist, fingers digging into my side. "She's been under the weather, nothing serious." Eleanor's gaze lingered on me, something unreadable in her expression. "Well, make sure she eats, David. She's wasting away." That night, as I washed dishes, Eleanor joined me in the kitchen while David entertained Mark in the living room. "How are things really, Sarah?" she asked quietly. My hands stilled in the soapy water. Was this a trap? A test? I'd learned the hard way that David had informants everywhere. "Fine," I answered automatically, busy with the children. "Sarah." Eleanor's voice dropped lower. "I'm not blind. I see the way you flinch when he moves too quickly. I see how the children watch him for cues before they speak. Tears burned behind my eyes. I blinked them back, focused on scrubbing a pot. "I don't know what you mean," she sighed, glancing toward the living room. "My husband David's father was the same. I left when the boys were teenagers. Too late, probably." She touched my arm gently. "It's not too late for you." Hope flared briefly. "Could you help us?" "The children and me? I can send money," she whispered. "But David can never know I helped. He'd never forgive me. Even his own mother feared him." The realization should have devastated me, but instead it hardened something inside me. If his mother saw the truth and still wouldn't truly help us, we were truly alone. The weekend passed in a haze of performative family happiness. As they were leaving, Eleanor pressed a folded check into my hand. "For emergencies," she murmured. "Keep it hidden." I nodded, slipping it into my pocket. After they drove away, David turned to me with an odd smile. "What did my mother give you?" Heart stopped. "Nothing. Empty your pockets, Sarah." Trembling, I pulled out the check. $5,000. A fortune to me who hadn't held more than $20 in years. David took it, examined it, then slowly tore it into tiny pieces. My mother always was a sentimental fool. He let the pieces fall to the floor. "Clean that up." As I knelt to gather the shreds, something broke inside me. Not hope this time, but the last thread of fear that had kept me compliant. If his own mother saw and did nothing meaningful, no one would save us. Ever. That night, I discovered I was pregnant again. The test had been hidden under the sink for weeks, purchased by David, who'd been tracking my cycle again, eager for a third child to complete his collection. 2 pink lines. Another life growing inside me. Another chain binding. Me to this house, this man. I sat on the bathroom floor, test in hand, and for the first time in years, I allowed myself to sob openly. For myself, for my children. For the baby who would be born into this prison. David found me there, tear-streaked and hollow-eyed. "What's wrong?" he demanded, then saw the test. His face transformed with joy. "You're pregnant, Sarah. This is wonderful." "When?" I didn't respond. His expression darkened. "Aren't you happy?" "Yes," I whispered, the lie bitter on my tongue. "You don't look happy." He crouched beside me, gripping my chin. "Why aren't you happy about our baby?" I'm just tired. Tired." His fingers tightened. "We've been blessed with another child, and you're tired." Something in my expression must have betrayed my true feelings. The despair, the trapped animal panic. David saw it in his face, contorted with rage. "You ungrateful bitch," he hissed. After everything I've given you. The first blow caught me across the cheek, the second in my ribs. I curled protectively around my stomach, instinct overriding everything else. Stop, I gasped. The baby, he paused, breathing hard. You're right. I wouldn't want to hurt the baby. His voice was terrifyingly calm now. But you need time to adjust your attitude, to appreciate your blessings. That night was the first time he kept me in the crate longer than a few days. 7 days, I counted, marking time by meals and bathroom breaks. 7 days while he told the children mommy needed special rest for the new baby. 7 days to understand that this would be my life. Until death his or mine. Roger was replaced by a new delivery man after David suspected he was being too friendly. The new driver was a woman named Mel, short for Melissa, with spiky hair and tattooed arms. She didn't smile or make small talk, just dropped the packages and left. Perfect for David's purposes. Terrible for my dwindling hopes of outside contact. The pregnancy was difficult from the start. Morning sickness that lasted all day. Spotting that sent David into protective overdrive. By week 14, I was on bed rest, another form of confinement, this one with medical justification. The doctor said mild activity is fine, I argued after one appointment where David had done most of the talking. The doctor doesn't know. What's best for you, I do. He arranged pillows behind me on our bed. I'll handle the children. You focus on keeping our baby safe. The children were confused by my new restrictions. Emma, now almost 6, tried to help by bringing me books and toys. Jackson, 4 and rambunctious, couldn't understand why mommy wouldn't play. Is the baby making you sick? He asked, his small hand on my still flat stomach. A little, I admitted. But it's temporary. When the baby comes out, will you be better? I pulled him close, breathed in his little boy's smell of dirt and apple juice. Yes, I lied. Everything will be better then. 3 weeks into bed rest, I developed a urinary tract infection common in pregnancy, but painful and potentially dangerous if untreated. David finally called the doctor, who prescribed antibiotics and suggested a follow-up visit. The pharmacy? Closes at 6, David muttered, checking his watch. It was 5:30 and his construction site was 30 minutes away. I'll never make it. I saw my chance. There's a delivery today. The driver could pick it up. David hesitated, torn between suspicion and practicality. Fine, but I'm making the call. He arranged for Mel to collect my prescription. When she arrived an hour later, David was still out picking up Jackson from a playdate, a rare social interaction he allowed to maintain appearances. Emma let Mel in while I watched from the couch, where I'd been permitted to relocate. Prescription. For Matthews, Mel said, holding out a white paper bag. Thank you. Our fingers brushed as I took it. You're very kind. She shrugged. No big deal. Boss said you're on bed rest. Yes. I glanced toward the door, heart racing. David could return any minute. It's complicated. Something in my tone made her look more closely at me. Her eyes narrowed, taking in details I couldn't hide. The fading bruise at my temple, the way Emma hovered protectively nearby, the cameras mounted in the corners of the room. Yeah, she said slowly. Looks complicated. She turned to leave, then paused. Need anything else while I'm here? Water? Snack? No, I stopped, seeing her slip a small piece of paper onto the side table. Actually, some water would be wonderful. Mel nodded and followed Emma to the kitchen. When they returned, the paper was gone, tucked into my sweater sleeve. Take care, Mel said meaningfully as she left. That night, locked in the bathroom, I read her note by the light of my phone, the only privacy I had left. And even that was time. I see you. If you need help, put a blue item in the next delivery box. Emmy flushed the note, watching it dissolve. Blue item. Next delivery. Help. For the first time in years. I felt something dangerous. Hope. The next morning, as David prepared to leave. For work, Emma tugged at his sleeve. Daddy, can I go with you? Please? David frowned. What about school? Teacher's workday, I explained. No school. Please, Daddy? Emma's eyes were wide, pleading, I want to see where you build houses. David's expression softened, as it always did for Emma. Well, I suppose you could come for the morning. He turned to me. Can you manage Jackson alone, with your condition? The concern in his voice was genuine. That was the most terrifying part of David's love for us, was real in his twisted way. We'll be fine, I assured him. Jackson will help me, won't you, buddy? Jackson nodded solemnly. At 4, he was already learning to read the undercurrents in our home. After they left, I moved quickly. Jackson helped me pack the delivery return box with items David had decided weren't right: a lampshade, a set of towels the wrong shade of beige. On top, I placed Emma's blue hair ribbon. Why are you putting that in, Mommy? Jackson asked. It's broken, I lied. See this frayed edge? We'll get a new one. When Mel arrived that afternoon, I handed her the box with trembling hands. Returns, I said clearly, for the benefit of the cameras. Her eyes flickered to the blue ribbon, then back to me. A slight nod. Understanding. Got it. Anything else today? No, I said, then impulsively added, see you next time. It was a small act of defiance, invisible to anyone watching. But saying it aloud, acknowledging there would be a next time, a future beyond this moment, felt revolutionary. That night, I held Jackson close as I read him a bedtime story, aware of David listening. Through the monitor, double quotes, ... and the trapped little birds sang so beautifully that the farmer opened the cage. I read, my voice steady despite the lump in my throat. And though the bird flew away, she returned each spring to sing her thanks. I like that story, Jackson, murmured sleepily. I kissed his forehead. Me too, baby, me too. 3 days after I sent the blue ribbon, a sheriff's deputy knocked on our door. I was alone with Jackson. David, having taken Emma to a daddy-daughter lunch, was way of rewarding her for being Daddy's good girl. My heart nearly stopped at the sight of the uniform. Mrs. Matthews, I'm Deputy Collins. Mind if I come in? Just need to ask a few questions. Of course. I stepped aside, Jackson clinging to my leg. The deputy looked around our living room, taking in the spotless surfaces, the family photos arranged in perfect rows. Nothing to see, nothing out of place. Got a call from someone concerned about your welfare, he said, notebook in hand. Anonymous. Mel, it had to be. Hope and terror warred in my chest. My welfare? I kept my voice steady, neutral. I don't understand. Just routine. Gotta follow up on all reports. He glanced at my pregnant belly. How far along? 18 weeks. I rested my hand protectively over the bump. Our third. Congratulations. His eyes traveled to my face, lingering on the yellowing bruise at my temple, a souvenir from last week when I'd overcooked David's steak. Mind telling me how you got that? The moment stretched between us. Tell him, a voice screamed inside me. Tell him everything, but I'd been here before. The hospital social worker, Roger the delivery man, even David's mother. People who noticed, who maybe even wanted to help, but couldn't or wouldn't do enough. And if I told and wasn't believed, if the deputy left and David discovered I'd spoken, the crate would be the least of my worries. I fell, I said the lie, practiced and smooth. Pregnancy balance issues. My husband's been after me to be more careful. Deputy Collins wrote something in his notebook. Is your husband home? He's out with our daughter. Should be back soon. I glanced at the clock, anxiety rising. Within the hour. Mind if I look around? I led him through the house, Jackson trailing behind us. The deputy noted the cameras, but didn't comment. Saw the locks on the outside of the children's bedrooms, but accepted my explanation about sleepwalking concerns. Glanced at the dog crate in the corner of our bedroom, but didn't ask about it. Nothing to see. Nothing provably wrong. We were back in the living room when David's truck pulled into the driveway. My stomach clenched. That's my husband now, I said, failing to keep the tension from my voice. Deputy Collins watched my face carefully. Mrs. Matthews, is there anything you want to tell me? Anything at all? David's key in the lock. Emma's laughter. Last chance. No, I whispered. Everything's fine. David entered, his smile freezing when he saw the deputy. Emma ran to me, oblivious to the tension. Mommy, Daddy bought me ice cream. What's going on here? David's voice was pleasant, but I could hear the dangerous undercurrent. Just a routine welfare check, sir, Deputy Collins said. I had an anonymous concern about your wife. Really? David's laugh was perfectly calibrated, surprised, slightly annoyed, but good-humored. Well, as you can see, she's fine. Bit clumsy these days with a pregnancy, but we're managing. So, I see. The deputy closed his notebook. Sorry to bother you folks. Better safe than sorry, right? Absolutely. David clapped him on the shoulder, man to man. We appreciate your thoroughness, don't we, Sarah? Yes, I managed. Thank you for checking. After the deputy left, David maintained his pleasant demeanor until the children were in bed. Then he came to me in the kitchen, his movements deliberate, controlled. Who did you talk to? His voice was soft, which was always worse than yelling. No, one David, I swear. Someone called the police, Sarah. Someone thinks I'm hurting you. He stroked my cheek, his touch gentle even as his eyes hardened. Why would anyone think that? I don't know, maybe a neighbor saw me fall the other day. He studied my face, searching for lies. For your sake, I hope that's true. That night, I lay awake beside him, the weight of failure crushing my chest. The system that was supposed to protect women like me had looked right at my bruises, my fear, my prison, and walked away. If Mel tried to help again, would it be enough? Or would it just make everything worse? I didn't know the answer, but I was running out of both time and hope. After the deputy's visit, David installed more cameras and changed the security codes. The dog crate was moved to the basement out of sight from any future visitors, but more isolated, more terrifying. For 2 weeks, I walked on eggshells, waiting for his retribution. It came in subtle ways, forgetting my prenatal vitamins, scheduling appointments without telling me until the last minute, discussing my mental fragility with the children while I was in the room. But something had changed in Emma. At 6, she was beginning to see the cracks in David's carefully constructed reality. The deputy's visit had raised questions she couldn't articulate but clearly felt. One afternoon while David was at work, she crawled into bed beside me during my mandated rest period. Mommy, why did that policeman come here? I chose my words carefully, aware of the cameras, the monitors. Sometimes police check on families to make sure everyone is okay. Are we okay? Her small face was serious, troubled. We love each other. Very much, I answered, which wasn't a lie. That's the most important thing. Emma considered this. Daddy says you get confused, that you need his help to think right. The words stung, but I kept my expression neutral. Everyone thinks differently, sweetheart. That doesn't mean anyone is wrong. Like how I like green beans, but Jackson hates them. Something like that. I smoothed her hair. Emma, do you remember the story about the Emperor's new clothes? She nodded. The one where everyone pretended to see clothes that weren't there? That's right. And only the little boy was brave enough to say the truth that the Emperor was actually naked. I kept my voice light, as if discussing any fairy tale. Sometimes adults don't tell the truth because they're afraid. Are you afraid, Mommy? My heart clenched. Sometimes. But being afraid doesn't mean you're wrong. That night, I was punished for spending too long in the bathroom, 3 hours in the basement crate. As David locked me in, I noticed Emma watching. From the stairs, her face half hidden in shadows. The next morning, as David prepared to leave for work, Emma asked, Is Mommy in trouble because she was telling me stories yesterday? David froze, then smiled. What stories, Princess? About the Emperor with no clothes. And how people pretend things are okay when they're not. His eyes flicked to me, then back to Emma. Mommy reads too many fairy tales. Real life isn't like that. After he left, Emma whispered, I didn't tell him about the other things you said. A secret between us. The first of many. I began using my confinement strategically. When sent to the crate, I would really think about our situation, about David's patterns, about potential allies and escape routes, about what the children would need if we ever got out. I couldn't change our circumstance yet, but I could prepare, could strengthen my mind while my body was trapped, and I could teach my children, in small ways, how to recognize manipulation, how to maintain their sense of self even when someone tried to erase it. During bath time, I taught them body autonomy. No one should touch you without permission. I whispered over running water that muffled my words from the cameras, not even parents. While folding laundry, I taught them about boundaries. It's okay to want privacy. It's okay to say no. Through bedtime stories, I taught them about escape. The witch's house looked beautiful. I read from Hansel and Gretel, but inside it was a prison. The children had to be clever to get away. Jackson was too young to fully understand, but Emma absorbed everything. I saw her watching David more carefully, questioning his explanations in her own mind, if not out loud. One night, she smuggled a granola bar to me during a punishment period. "Daddy said you're not allowed dinner," she whispered, passing it through the crate bars. "But that's not fair." It was the first time she'd openly defied him, even in this small way. Pride and fear battled in my chest. "Thank you, brave girl," I whispered back. "Now go before he sees you." But Emma hesitated. "Mommy, the Emperor really didn't have clothes, did he? Even though everyone said he did." I met her eyes in the dim basement light. "That's right, Emma. Sometimes everyone says something is true when it isn't. Like how Daddy says he puts you in the cage because he loves you." My breath caught. "Yes, sweetheart." Exactly like that. She nodded sullenly. "I thought so." As she crept back upstairs, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Not the desperate, fleeting kind that had been crushed so many times before, but something steadier, stronger. My daughter was beginning to see the truth, and that truth might someday set us all free. I was 24 weeks pregnant when the bleeding started, not spotting this time-bright red blood soaking through my nightgown as I stood in the kitchen making dinner. "Mommy?" Jackson's voice seemed to come from far away. "Mommy, you're leaking." I looked down, saw the crimson spreading, felt the room tilt. "Emma, I managed to call. Get Daddy." David appeared in seconds, face draining of color when he saw the blood. For once, his control shattered, replaced by genuine fear. "We need an ambulance," I gasped, clutching the counter. "No time." He scooped me up with surprising gentleness. "Emma, watch your brother." "Lock the door behind us. Don't open it for anyone but me." The drive to the hospital was a blur of pain and panic. David ran red lights, one hand on the wheel, the other gripping mine. "Hold on," he kept saying. "Just hold on." In that moment, he wasn't my jailer but my husband, the father of our children. As terrified of losing this baby as I was. The emergency room was chaos, nurses rushing, monitors beeping, a doctor barking orders. Placental abruption, I heard someone say. "We need an OR now. Save her," David told the doctor, his voice breaking. "Save both of them." I was wheeled away, David jogging alongside until a nurse stopped him. "Sir, you need to wait here." "No, I need to stay with her." "Sir, we don't allow anyone in the operating room. Hospital policy." For the first time in years, someone told David no and made it stick. The last thing I saw before the anesthesia took me was his face lost, frightened, powerless. I woke to beeping monitors and the muted sounds of a hospital at night. My hand rested on my still swollen belly, and panic seized me before I felt the reassuring movement beneath my palm. "Still pregnant. Baby still alive. You're awake." David sat beside the bed, looking haggard. "They stopped the bleeding. Partial abruption, they called it. The baby's okay, but you need to stay here for observation." "The children?" "With my mother. She flew in. Eleanor." I wasn't sure if that was good news or bad. A nurse entered, checked my vitals. "How's the pain on a scale of 1 to 10? 4. I answered automatically, downplaying as I always did. "She means 7. David corrected, surprising me. She always understates pain. The nurse nodded, adjusted something in my fore. The doctor will be in soon to discuss your care plan. You'll need complete bed rest for the remainder of the pregnancy, with close monitoring. After she left, David took my hand. I thought I was going to lose you. His voice was thick with emotion. Both of you. We're okay, I said, unsure how to navigate this version of David vulnerable, genuinely concerned. When I saw all that blood ... double quotes, he shook his head. Nothing else mattered. Not the house, not my job, nothing. I'd seen this before, moments of clarity when crisis stripped away his controlling nature. They never lasted. The doctor says you'll need specialized care, he continued. Home health nurses, regular monitoring. I've already arranged to work from home until the baby comes. My heart sank. Constant supervision, medicalized imprisonment. That's not necessary. I can follow doctor's orders on my own. It's not about trust, Sarah. It's about keeping you and the baby safe. But it was about trust. It always had been. The doctor arrived, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. Mrs. Matthews, I'm Dr. Chen. You gave us quite a scare. She explained the situation. The placenta had partially separated from the uterine wall. With bed rest and monitoring, the pregnancy could continue, but there were risks. Premature labor, further abruption, hemorrhage. We'll need to see you twice weekly until delivery, she concluded. And you'll have home health visits on alternate days. I'll make sure she follows every instruction. David assured her. Dr. Chen's eyes flicked between us, something unreadable in her expression. Actually, Mr. Matthews, could you give us a moment? I need to examine your wife and discuss some feminine matters. David hesitated, then nodded stiffly. I'll get coffee. The moment he left, Dr. Chen's demeanor subtly shifted. Mrs. Matthews, I'm going to examine you now. This may be uncomfortable. As she checked my abdomen, she spoke quietly. I noticed some concerning bruising during your emergency surgery. Bruising inconsistent with your fall. My heart raced. I bruise easily during pregnancy. That's common, she agreed. But these patterns suggest something else. She met my eyes directly. Is there anything you want to tell me? Anything about your home situation? The moment stretched between us. Another chance, another potential ally. But David was just outside, and I had no guarantee of protection. I'm fine, I whispered, just worried about the baby. Dr. Chen nodded, disappointment flickering across her face. Well, the home health nurse will check on you regularly. Her name is Diane. She's very experienced. She emphasized the last words. Slightly, meaningfully, another ally? Or was I grasping at straws? Thank you, I said. David returned, resumed his place beside the bed, hand possessively on my arm. When can I take her home? 2 more days of observation, Dr. Chen said. And then Mrs. Matthews will see you twice weekly in my office. She held my gaze. Every Tuesday and Friday. I'll be personally overseeing your case. As she left, I felt something like a lifeline being extended. Regular appointments. Away from home. Away from David. It wasn't freedom. But it was a door cracked. Ever so slightly open. Diane arrived the day after I came home from the hospital. Stout woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and no-nonsense eyes. She reminded me of my 3rd grade teacher, the one who could silence a classroom with a single raised eyebrow. David hovered during that first visit, answering questions directed at me, explaining my special needs and confusion issues. Diane listened, face impassive. I'll need to examine Mrs. Matthews privately, she finally said. Standard protocol for maternal health checks. That's not necessary, David responded smoothly. My wife is quite modest and prefers I stay. Mr. Matthews, Diane's tone could have frozen lava. This isn't optional. I need to check incisions and bleeding. Unless you're a certified medical professional, you'll need to step out. Their gazes locked in silent battle. To my shock, David relented first. 5 minutes, he conceded. I'll be right outside. The moment the bedroom door closed, Diane moved efficiently, checking my vitals, examining the healing incision from my emergency surgery. "How are you really feeling?" she asked, voice low. "Tired, sore, and emotionally?" I hesitated, worried about the baby. "Understandable." She jotted notes on her tablet, then asked casually, "Those cameras in every room security system?" "Yes." My pulse quickened. "David is very safety conscious." She checked my blood pressure again. Elevated. "Not surprising given your situation." She emphasized the last word slightly, eyes meeting mine meaningfully. Before I could respond, she continued in the same professional tone. "I'll be visiting 3 times a week. Dr. Chen has ordered additional monitoring beyond the standard protocol. Given your high-risk status," David re-entered without knocking. "Time's up. Mr. Matthews, your wife's recovery is progressing normally, but her blood pressure is concerning. She needs calm and minimal stress." Diane packed her equipment. "I'll return Wednesday." After she left, David sat beside me on the bed. "I don't like her." "She seems competent," I ventured. "She's intrusive." His fingers absently traced patterns on my arm. "Maybe we should request someone else. Dr. Chen specifically assigned her." I kept my voice neutral, careful. Changing might raise questions. He frowned but nodded. "You're right. We'll manage." Her. Over the next 2 weeks, Diane's visits became the highlight of my restricted existence. David couldn't reasonably object to the medical necessity, and after the first week, he began scheduling work calls during her visits, allowing us precious minutes alone. During those moments, we developed a system. She would ask routine questions, loud enough for the cameras to pick up, while writing others on her tablet for me to read. "Husband always this controlling? Children safe? Need help getting out?" I nodded to the last question, tears welling. Diane squeezed my hand, then erased the message. "Blood pressure still elevated," she announced for the record. "I'll note it in my report to Dr. Chen." By her 6th visit, David had grown complacent, believing Diane was just another ineffectual observer who saw what he wanted her to see. He stayed in his office during her entire visit. "We need to talk about your safety plan," she whispered, checking the doorway. "Dr. Chen and I have concerns about your home situation. He's always watching," I whispered back. "Cameras everywhere. He monitors my phone. I can't." "You're next." "Appointment with Dr. Chen is Tuesday. She's arranged for a social worker and advocate to be there." She gripped my hand. "Can you get him to take you to that appointment?" "He never leaves me alone at appointments." "We're prepared for that. The important thing is getting you there." She glanced at the camera in the corner of the bedroom, then wrote on her tablet, "Trust us. Tuesday. Be ready." Hope and terror roared in my chest. An appointment. A plan. People who saw through David's facade. But if it failed, if David suspected, the consequences would be unimaginable. That night, as David checked the locks before bed, Emma slipped into my room. At 6, she had become adept at navigating her. Father's rules, finding the blind spots in his surveillance. "Mommy, are we going somewhere?" she whispered. My blood froze. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "I heard Daddy talking to Grandma on the phone. He said he might try to take us away." "David's mother." Of course he confided in her, seeking reinforcement for his paranoia. "No, baby. I'm on bed rest, remember?" "I can't go anywhere." Emma studied my face with eyes too knowing for her age. "If we did go somewhere, would Daddy come too?" The question hung between us, loaded with implications a 6-year-old shouldn't comprehend. "Emma, I don't want him to," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "He scares me sometimes." My heart shattered and reformed in an instant, resolve crystallizing where fear had reigned. My children deserved better. I deserved better. "Go back to bed, sweetheart. Everything will be okay." After she left, I lay in the dark, one hand on my belly, feeling the baby's movements. Tuesday, 4 days away. Could I maintain the pretense that long? Could I hide the desperate hope building? In my chest? I had to. Not just for me, but for Emma, who was brave enough to voice what I'd been too afraid to acknowledge. We were all afraid of David, and we all wanted to be free. Tuesday arrived with the weight of both promise and dread. My appointment with Dr. Chun was scheduled for 2 p.m. David had arranged for Eleanor to watch the children. Complication I hadn't anticipated. I don't understand why your mother needs to come, I said as he helped me dress that morning. Pregnancy and bed rest had left me dependent on him in ways that made my skin crawl. Because you need constant supervision, and I can't be in two places at once. He buttoned my maternity dress with clinical efficiency. Besides, she wants to help. Eleanor had arrived the previous evening, her eyes darting between David and me with barely concealed anxiety. Whatever David had told her, it had reinforced her own fearful compliance. She wouldn't help us. Might even hinder an escape attempt. As I sat at the kitchen table, pretending to eat breakfast, I caught Emma watching me. She'd been unusually quiet since our late-night conversation, observing everything with those two old eyes. Grandma's going to make cookies with you today, I told her, forcing cheer into my voice. While you're at the doctor. She pushed her cereal around the bowl. Can I come instead? Not today, princess, David answered before I could. Mommy needs to focus on the baby. Emma's gaze dropped, but not before I saw the understanding there. My heart squeezed. How much did she know? How much had she guessed? Diane arrived for her scheduled visit at 11 a.m., medical bag in hand. Good morning, Mrs. Matthews, Mr. Matthews. Her eyes flickered briefly to Eleanor. I'll be quick today, just checking vitals before your appointment. In the bedroom, as she wrapped the blood pressure cuff around my arm, she whispered, Everything's arranged. Dr. Chun has an exit through the staff parking area. Security will be present. My pulse raced so violently that she frowned at the monitor. Try to stay calm, she murmured. For the baby. My mother-in-law is here, I whispered back. She watched the children. I can't leave them. Diane's expression didn't change as she noted numbers on our chart. The plan accounts for that. Do you have any small items you want to take? Documents? Medications? I shook my head minutely. Everything important ID, birth certificates, was locked in David's safe. We'll handle it, she assured me. Then, louder, for the benefit of anyone listening. Blood pressure still elevated. Make sure to mention that to Dr. Chun today. She left with a professional nod to David and Eleanor. 3 hours until the appointment. 3 hours to maintain the charade of normalcy while my entire body vibrated with terror and hope. David worked in his home office until 1:30, then helped me to the car. As he settled me in the passenger seat, I caught sight of Emma's face in the window, palm pressed against the glass. I raised my hand in response, willing her to understand. This isn't goodbye. I'm coming back for you. The drive to the medical center was silent. I stared out the window, memorizing landmarks, street names, distances. Information I might need later. In the waiting room, David filled out my paperwork, answering questions about my health as if my body belonged to him. In many ways it had. Sarah Matthews? A nurse appeared at the doorway, clipboard in hand. David helped me stand, his arm firm around my waist as we followed the nurse through double doors into the examination area. Sir, we need to get your wife's weight and urine sample, the nurse sighed. You can wait here. I'll come with her, David insisted. Hospital policy, the nurse replied smoothly. Just take a seat in exam room 3. She'll join you in a few minutes. His jaw tightened, but with other patients watching, he couldn't make a scene. 5 minutes, he told me, the warning clear in his eyes, the moment he disappeared into the exam room. The nurse's demeanor changed. This way, quickly, she murmured, guiding me down a different hallway. Dr. Chun waited at the end, along with a woman in a police uniform and another in civilian clothes. Mrs. Matthews, Dr. Chun said, voice low and urgent. This is Officer Ramirez. And Ms. Parker from Family Services. We're here to help you. My children, I gasped. They're at home with his mother. We have officers en route, Ramirez assured me. But right now, we need to get you to safety before he realizes what's happening. Fear nearly paralyzed me. He'll know. He always knows. Not this time, Miss Parker said gently. We have a safe house ready. You and your children will be protected. A door opened at the end of the hall, the staff exit Diane had mentioned. A police cruiser waited beyond Dot if you believe no woman should ever go through this alone. Leave alike. I took one step, then another. Walking away from 7 years of captivity. Walking toward an uncertain freedom that terrified me almost as much as staying. Behind us, faintly, I heard David's voice. Where is my wife? What have you done with my wife? And then I was outside, breathing air that tasted different somehow. The taste of the first real choice I'd made in years. The safe house was a small ranch-style home on the outskirts of town, run by a domestic violence shelter. Bland furnishings, security cameras, reinforced doors, a different kind of prison, but one designed to keep danger out rather than keep me in. Your children will be brought here once they're cleared medically, Ms. Parker explained as a shelter worker showed me to a bedroom. Standard procedure in these cases. Cases. I was a case now. A statistic. One of countless women who've lived through what I had, or hadn't lived through it. How long will that take? My hands cradled my swollen belly protectively. A few hours, at most. Try to rest. Rest was impossible. Every sound made me flinch. A door closing, voices in the hallway, a car passing outside. I expected David to appear at any moment, smiling that controlled smile, telling everyone there had been a misunderstanding. Officer Ramirez arrived around dinner time, her expression carefully neutral. Mrs. Matthews, we have your children. Are they okay? I struggled to stand, awkward with pregnancy. They're fine. Your daughter is quite protective of her brother. A hint of admiration colored her voice. They're being brought here now. But I need to prepare you. Your mother-in-law is making accusations. My stomach dropped. What kind of accusations? She's claiming you're mentally unstable. That you've made false allegations against your husband before. Ramirez watched my reaction closely. Is that true? No. My voice strengthened with indignation. I've never reported him. Never told anyone what was really happening until Diane and Dr. Chun. She nodded. Your husband has been taken in for questioning. He's already contacted a lawyer. Of course he had. David would fight this with every resource at his disposal. The thought made me lightheaded with fear. Before I could respond, the front door opened. Emma's voice high, frightened, reached me from the entry. Where's my mom? You said she'd be here. I moved as quickly as my condition allowed, following Ramirez to the living room. Emma stood, clutching Jackson's hand, both children wide-eyed and uncertain in this strange surroundings. Mommy! Jackson broke free, running to me. I knelt to embrace him, breathing in his familiar scent. Emma held back, watching me with that too adult gaze. Did you run away from Daddy? The question silenced the room. Ms. Parker and Officer Ramirez exchanged glances. I didn't run away, I said carefully. I asked for help, and these people are helping us. Is Daddy in trouble? How to answer that? How to explain to a 6-year-old that her father, who loved her in his damaged way, had committed crimes against her mother? Your daddy and I need to be apart for a while, I finally said, while grown-ups figure things out. Emma considered this, then asked the question that revealed how much she truly understood. Will we have to go back to the house? No, sweetheart, we won't. She nodded, some tension leaving her small shoulders. Good. I don't like the cameras. Or the cage. Miss Parker's pen stilled on her notepad. Officer Ramirez's expression hardened. Cage? She asked gently. For when Mommy breaks the rules, Emma explained matter-of-factly. It's in the basement now. It used to be in their bedroom, but Daddy moved it. The professionals maintained neutral expressions, but I saw the horror in their eyes. It was the same horror I felt hearing my daughter so casually describe her normal. Later, after the children were settled in the room adjoining mine, Miss Parker sat with me at the kitchen table. We'll need detailed statements, she said. Everything. You can remember, Dates, incidents, witnesses, if any. There weren't witnesses. That was the point. I stared at my hands, at the fading bruise on my wrist, except the children. Your daughter's statement alone, ... She shook her head. But we'll need yours too. When you're ready. Ready? Would I ever be ready to relive 7 years of systematic abuse? To explain how I'd gone from a confident young woman to a prisoner in my own home? What happens now? I asked instead. Protective orders. Custody arrangements. Eventually, criminal charges. She hesitated. It won't be easy. Men like your husband rarely surrender control without a fight. That night, I lay between my sleeping children in the unfamiliar bed, listening to the strange sounds of the shelter, other women's muffled crying, security guards making rounds, the hum of surveillance equipment that was, ironically, so similar to my home. Jackson snored softly, one small hand fisted in my nightgown. Emma slept rigidly, even in unconsciousness, as if expecting to be startled awake. We were safe, for now. But David was out there, plotting, planning, and his mother was supporting whatever narrative he created about me. The baby kicked. A strong, insistent movement against my ribs. This child who would never know life in that house. Who would never see its mother locked in a cage or learn to spy for its father. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to cry freely, not the careful, silent tears I'd mastered to avoid. Punishment, but deep, body-shaking sobs of grief and relief and terror. I had escaped. But freedom, I was discovering, came with its own kind of fear. David was released on bail the next day. The temporary restraining order kept him from approaching use, but knowing he was free sent me spiraling into panic attacks that threatened the already precarious pregnancy. He'll find us, I told my assigned victim advocate, a steady-eyed woman named Kaisha. He always finds a way. That's why you're here, she reminded me. And why your location is confidential. 2 days after our escape, Diane visited the shelter to check on me. You did it, she said, genuine pride in her voice as she took my blood pressure. Sony never make it this far. I almost didn't, I admitted. If Emma hadn't said she was afraid ... Children are often the catalyst, Diane nodded. We see that pattern repeatedly. Women will endure anything themselves, but when they realize their children are suffering. The district attorney assigned to our case arrived that afternoon, a severe woman in her 40s named Janine Martinez. I'll be blunt, Mrs. Matthews. This won't be easy. She laid out photographs taken of the dog crate, the surveillance system, the locks on the bedroom doors, evidence collected during the search of our home. Your husband is claiming these were consensual arrangements. But you have severe anxiety and agreed to these ... security measures. My laugh was hollow. Consensual imprisonment? We've seen this defense before. Her expression softened slightly. But your daughter's statement is compelling. And the medical documentation from Dr. Chen and Diane provides strong supporting evidence. She explained the legal process ahead: grand jury, indictment, potential trial. Months, possibly years of legal battles. In the meantime, we need to address custody, she continued. Your husband is already filing for emergency custody, claiming you're a flight risk and mentally unstable. Another panic attack threatened to overwhelm me. He can't take them. He can't. The shelter's legal team will help with the family court proceedings, Kaisha assured me. For now, the temporary order grants you full custody. The next weeks passed in a blur of appointments, legal, medical, psychological. The children began therapy with a specialist in trauma. I gave depositions, signed affidavits, reviewed police reports. Through it all, the baby grew, my body preparing for birth despite the stress surrounding it. Emma adapted shelter life with remarkable resilience, attaching herself to Kaisha and asking endless questions about the legal process. Jackson had more difficulty, waking with nightmares and asking repeatedly when we could go home. This is home now, Emma would tell him with the wisdom of her 7 years. The old house wasn't safe. A month after our escape, David's mother requested a supervised visit with the children. Against my better judgment, I agreed they loved their grandmother despite her complicity. Eleanor arrived at the visitation center looking older, diminished without David's controlling presence. "Sarah," she acknowledged stiffly, "you're looking well." The subtext was clear. Why had I needed to escape if I was doing so well? "The children are excited to see you," I said instead of the accusations burning my tongue. After the visit, Eleanor asked to speak with me privately, with the supervisor present. "David's not well," she said, twisting her wedding ring. "He's not eating, barely sleeping. That's not my concern anymore. He loves you, all of you. He just ... she faltered. "He doesn't know how to show it properly." "Imprisoning someone isn't love, Eleanor. It's abuse." She flinched at the word. "He's seeing a therapist now, making changes. Good for him." I stood, one hand supporting my 8-month belly. "But it's too late for us." Her eyes filled with tears. "He's still their father." "Yes, and they'll have a relationship with him when the court deems it safe. But I will never go back to him. Ever, as I waddled back to the shelter van, I realized I meant it. Despite the uncertain future, despite the financial insecurity and legal battles ahead, I would never return to that life, to that cage. That night, I felt the first contractions, mild, sporadic, but unmistakable. The baby was coming early, eager to be born into our new, fragile freedom. Dr. Chen met us at the hospital, her presence a comfort in the controlled chaos of the maternity ward. "You've got this, Sarah," she assured me as the contractions intensified. "You're stronger than you know." 14 hours later, I held my daughter 5 pounds, 3 ounces of perfect defiance, born not into captivity but into possibility. "Lily," I whispered to her tiny, scrunched face. "Your name is Lily." A new flower growing not in darkness, but in light. The courtroom was smaller than it appeared on television. Polished wood, fluorescent lighting, the scent of lemon polish, and anxiety. I sat on the witness stand, 35 years old and 5 years removed from the woman who had been locked in a dog crate. "Mrs. Matthews," David's attorney addressed me. "In the 5 years since you left your husband, you've denied him any unsupervised contact with his children. Don't you think that's excessive, given his completion of court-ordered therapy and anger management?" I looked past the attorney to where David sat at the defendant's table. He'd lost weight, grown a neatly trimmed beard. He looked respectable, repentant, like the man I'd fallen in love with, not the one who had imprisoned me. "No," I answered clearly. "I don't think it's excessive. I think it's appropriate." This was our 3rd custody hearing. David had been convicted of domestic abuse and false imprisonment, served 18 months in a minimum security facility, and was now on probation. He'd followed every court directive, attended every mandated program. On paper, he was rehabilitated. "But I knew better, Your Honor." I addressed the judge directly. "Mike's husband presents well." "He always has." But underneath that presentation is a man who locked his pregnant wife in a dog crate, who taught his children to spy on their mother, who convinced a 6-year-old that abuse was love. The judge, a woman in her 60s who had presided over our case from the beginning, nodded thoughtfully. "Ms. Matthews, your concerns are noted. Mr. Matthews, your progress is also noted." She shuffled some papers. "I'm continuing the current arrangement of supervised visitation twice monthly with quarterly reviews." David's face tightened momentarily before smoothing into acceptance. He'd learned to hide his rage better, but I still recognized the signs. Outside the courthouse, Lily skipped toward me, 5 years old and fearless in a way her siblings were still learning to be. Emma, now 12, held her hand while Jackson, 10, hung back with their advocate. "Do we win?" Lily asked, jumping into my arms. "It's not about winning, sweetie. It's about keeping everyone safe." Emma's knowing eyes met mine over Lily's curly head. "Dad still has supervised visits?" I nodded. "Same schedule." Relief washed over her face, followed quickly by guilt, the complex emotions of a child who both loved and feared her father, a burden she shouldn't have to carry. We'd moved 300 miles away after David's release, to a city where I'd found work as a dental office manager returning to skills I'd had before marriage. The children attended good schools. We had a small house with a yard and no surveillance cameras. Normal. We were finally normal. That evening, as I prepared dinner, my phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. Court go, okay? Still on for Saturday? Ryan was a single father I'd met at Lily's. Preschool. Kind, patient, utterly ordinary in the best possible way. We'd been dating for 6 months, my first relationship, since David. All good. Saturday works. Kids are excited for the zoo, I texted back. Moving on romantically had been harder than I'd expected. Physical intimacy still triggered panic attacks sometimes. Trust came slowly, painfully. But Ryan understood, never pushed, always asked before, touching me. Mom, Jackson deleted my homework file. Emma stormed into the kitchen, righteous indignation in full force. Did not. She's lying. Jackson followed, equally aggrieved. Ordinary sibling squabbles. Normal family chaos. The sound of healing. Later, after the argument was resolved and homework completed, I tucked Lily into bed. Unlike her siblings, she had no memories of our previous life. No trauma to process in therapy. No father she remembered living with. Mommy, tell me the bird story. She requested sleepily. It was her favorite. The one about the trapped bird who sang so beautifully that the farmer opened her cage. The story I'd read to Jackson years ago, whispering hope I barely believed. Once there was a little bird with golden feathers, I began, stroking her hair. She was trapped in a farmer's cage and very sad. From the doorway, Emma watched us. No longer the solemn child who'd smuggled food to me during punishments, but a preteen with strong opinions and stronger boundaries. She still had moments of hypervigilance, still flinched at loud noises, but therapy was helping. She still likes that baby story. Emma asked after I'd finished, and Lily was asleep. It comforts her. Emma leaned against the wall, suddenly looking much older than 12. It's weird, isn't it? How normal we seem to everyone else. What do you mean? At school, nobody knows. About Dad, the cage, any of it. They think we're just a regular family with divorced parents. We are regular, I said gently. What happened to us was not. She considered this. Do you think Dad will ever change? Like, really change? The question I'd asked myself 1,000 times. I don't know, and people can change if they truly want to, but they have to recognize what needs changing first. He still doesn't think he did anything wrong, does he? Perceptive as always. I think in his mind he was protecting us. She nodded slowly. I remember believing that too. That all those rules and cameras were because he loved us so much. My heart ached for what she'd lost, the simple belief in a father's unconditional love. The important thing, I told her, is that we know the difference now between love and control, between protection and imprisonment. Yeah, she straightened, 12 going on 30. We do. As she headed to her own room, I remained in Lily's doorway, watching my youngest breathe the easy breaths of the truly secure. We were healing. Not healed perhaps, never fully healed, but mending in the ways that mattered most. 10 years after I walked out of that doctor's office and into freedom, I stood before a room of women at the domestic violence shelter that had once housed us, the same bland furnishings, the same security measures, but different faces, women at various stages of their own journeys from captivity to independence. My name is Sarah, I began, and 10 years ago I sat where you're sitting now. I told them everything, the courtship that seemed like love, the isolation that came so gradually, the crate in the bedroom that became my prison. I told them about Emma's bravery, about Diane and Dr. Chun, about the escape plan that finally worked. The hardest part wasn't leaving, I explained. It was believing I deserved to leave. Believing I deserved better. A woman in the front row, bruises. Still yellowing around her eyes, nodded, tears streaming down her face. My ex-husband was released from prison last month, I continued. He served 5 years for what he did to us. Some would say that's not enough. Some days I agree. The restraining order had expired. David had completed parole. Legally, nothing prevented him from moving to our city, though family court still limited his access to the children to monthly supervised visits. But I don't live in fear anymore, I told them. I refused to give him that power. After the session, the shelter director approached me. We have an opening for a peer counselor, 20 hours a week, working with women transitioning to independent living. I think you'd be perfect. I smiled, thinking of the dental office where I still worked, the life I built, the boundaries I maintained. I'd like that. At home, I found Ryan preparing dinner while Lily, now 15, sat at the kitchen counter doing homework. We'd married 2 years earlier, a small ceremony with just the children and close friends as witnesses. How'd it go? He asked, kissing my cheek. Good, emotional, but good. I glanced at Lily. Where are the others? Emma's at soccer practice. Jackson's at debate club. Ryan stirred whatever delicious thing he was making. Oh, and your mother-in-law called. Eleanor. After David's conviction, she'd finally acknowledged what she'd always known, that her son was his father's son, damaged. In the same ways, she'd become, improbably, an ally and a loving grandmother. I'll call her back after dinner. I washed my hands, falling into the comfortable rhythm of family life. Did Jackson remember his medication this morning? I reminded him, Lily said, without looking up from our textbook. Jackson's PTSD had been the most severe of the children's. The nightmares had persisted through adolescence, joined by anxiety attacks and hypervigilance. But therapy, medication, and time were helping. Emma had channeled her experience into advocacy, starting a peer support group at her high school for children from troubled homes. At 22, she was now studying psychology, determined to help. Others as she'd been helped. The doorbell rang. Ryan glanced at me, eyebrow raised. We weren't expecting anyone. I wiped my hands and went to answer it, checking the security camera, first a concession to old fears. David stood on our porch. My heart stuttered, then steadied. This moment had always been inevitable. I opened the door but kept the security chain engaged. David, this is unexpected. He looked older, grayer, somehow smaller than the giant who had dominated my world for so long. Sarah, his voice was the same. I wanted to talk to you. In person. You should have called first. The children aren't here. I'm not here for them. I'm here for you. He shifted uncomfortably. May I come in? No. The word came easily, powerfully. What do you want? He seemed startled by my directness. The Sarah he'd known would have acquiesced, made excuses, blamed herself. I'm moving, he said finally. To Arizona? Near my mother. Relief washed through me, followed by suspicion. Why are you telling me in person? Because I wanted you to know I won't contest the custody arrangement anymore. The supervised visits, they're enough. I studied his face, searching for the manipulation, the hidden agenda. Why now? He looked away, then back. I've been seeing a new therapist. Not court-ordered this time. My choice, he swallowed. She's helping me understand some things. About control. About what I did to you. 10 years ago, these words would have meant everything. Now they were just words. I'm glad you're getting help, I said, meaning it. But that doesn't change our past. No, it doesn't. He glanced past me into the house, the home I'd built without him. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. It's not enough. I know that. But I am sorry. The apology hung between us, neither accepted nor rejected. Some wounds were too deep for simple closure. Take care of yourself, David, I said finally, and closed the door. Ryan stood in the hallway, tense and ready to intervene if needed. Everything okay? Yes, and it was. He's moving away, giving up the custody fight. Later that night, after the children were asleep, I sat on our back porch watching stars appear in the darkening sky. Ryan brought out tea, settled beside me, in comfortable silence. You know, I said eventually, for years I fantasized about him apologizing, recognizing what he'd done. Today he finally did, and I felt nothing. That's healing, Ryan suggested. Not needing his validation anymore. I considered this. Maybe Or maybe I've just learned that some apologies come too late. We sat in silence, his hand warm around mine. Inside, our children slept securely. Lily, who had never known captivity. Jackson, whose nightmares came less frequently now. Emma, who had transformed her pain into purpose. And me. No longer a victim, no longer a survivor even. Simply a woman who had reclaimed her life, one day at a time. If you believe in second chances, subscribe to this channel. Leave a comment with the words, "I survived." So I know you're out there too.